survival sandbox that simulates the whole human body. Presented by Intel, a typical survival sandbox might simulate things like hunger and thirst, and maybe require players to search for shelter and stay warm. But SCUM, a survival game set on a prison island that's been turned into a game show, takes this one step further. And then another step. And then a few more, until it's reached a new zip code. "We're simulating the human body," explains Gamepires technical director and studio co-founder Andrej Levenski. "When we simulate the body, everything else can be driven by this. If you're hungry, your hands are shaking, you're tired, this will influence everything else in the game. With all the stuff like metabolism, you'll see a huge difference between characters. It makes it very unpredictable. Fat and muscle ratios, blood pressure, exhaustion, weight, they all have an effect on how a character performs. Play a heaviset prisoner, for instance, and you might make more noise while moving, reducing your effectiveness at being stealthy. Add more clothes and gear on top of that, and you'll be even noisier. Your body can even betray you in fatal ways. If you choose to play as a prisoner who has more fat, then you have a chance to get a heart attack in the morning when the temperature is lower and the blood vessels tighten up." Tomislav Pongrak, Gamepires co-founder and creative director, adds, "All characters have a different amount of blood and a different blood pressure, and they can digest different amounts of food. You can even lose teeth, and if you lose all your teeth, you can starve." Levenski and Pongrak didn't really play survival games before they decided to make one of them their next project. They knew about Days, of course, and other titles, but until it came to testing them to see what the competition was like, they approached the genre with fresh eyes. That might explain why they're bucking convention, even if the familiar elements of struggling to survive on a hostile island by hunting, looting, and killing are still present. The pair noticed that, while Days helped to create a trend, things have started to change in the survival genre. A lot of the big survival games still haven't left early access, while battle royales like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds have been stripping the genre down to the barest of essentials. They think that there's room for a new, ultra-detailed survival sandbox that places a great deal of importance on its dynamic simulation. Character creation, metabolism, combat, and exploration are all interconnected, where one change can have a significant knock-on effect. If you make a character with very little body fat, for example, you'll need to find food more often. If you don't, you'll start to starve, making you weaker and tired. That, in turn, will make your hands shake, so you'll be less effective if you need to shoot other players, NPCs, or animals. Being a little bit on the chubby side, then, can sometimes be helpful. People ask us what the point of selecting a character with bad muscle and fat ratios is, and why they shouldn't just make a character that looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Pongrak says, "The thing is, in a survival situation, body fat is good. A character like that might not have to search for food as often. And eventually this fat will be burned, they'll lose weight and maybe gain some muscle in the process. Another character, a muscular guy, will have to feed those muscles protein to keep them. It's quite difficult. The metabolism mechanic means that change is constantly happening, and it's the same with the various skills that characters can learn. Ostensibly, every character can use every gun, every type of medicine, and generally attempt whatever they want, regardless of skill. They'll just have a lot more obstacles to overcome. Skills increase through use. You can start off with a low running skill, but if you run absolutely everywhere, you'll naturally become quite good at it. Similarly, if you've had no education, you might not be able to read, but by forcing yourself to try, or by meeting another player who can educate you, it's possible to learn. Knowing how to read might not, at first, seem all that pertinent to surviving on a prison island, but it could save your only life. If you're sick and looking for antibiotics, how will you be able to tell you've found the right bottle of medicine if you can't read the label? It's a good reason to team up with other players who might have skills you lack. We're trying to make this fully sandbox, Pongrak explains. We don't want anything to be forced, but sooner or later, players will realize that If they team up, their chances of survival will be much better, especially if they team up with players with advanced skills other than their own. It will be useful to have characters with a high medicine skill or